The Galactic Military Academy classified humans as low-threat clerical species. 73 cycles later, one human walked into a gravity chamber and broke everything we thought we knew about survival. Look, I have been working at the Galactic Military Academy for 73 cycles now, and let me tell you something. I have seen it all. Every species, every attitude, every ridiculous assumption about combat readiness that you can possibly think of. The Krexatha come in flexing their forearms like they are going to bench press a battleship. The Vornith arrive with their crystalline exoskeletons gleaming, acting like they are made of invincible diamond or something. And do not even get me started on the Quelrian hive minds. They show up thinking that having 12 bodies makes them 12 times as dangerous. Spoiler alert, it does not. But humans? Oh, humans were classified as low threat, category 5. To be precise, the absolute bottom of the barrel, right there next to the pifflings, who are basically sentient moss with delusions of grandeur. My name is Sergeant Vex Thornwhistle, and yes, I know what you are thinking. That name sounds made up. Well, tough luck, because that is what happens when you are born on a planet where your parents thought naming conventions should involve throwing magnetic poetry tiles at a wall and seeing what sticks. I am a Zelthorian, which means I stand about 9 feet tall, have skin like burnished copper, and can bench press approximately 4 times my body weight under standard galactic gravity. We are considered category 2, moderately high threat, respectable. Professional, not the kind of species you want to mess with in a dark alley or a brightly lit cafeteria. The Academy operates on a pretty straightforward system. When a new species applies for admission to the Galactic Coalition Defense Forces, we run them through a battery of tests, physical assessments, psychological evaluations, combat simulations, the works, then we assign them a threat category. Category 1 is reserved for the absolute apex predators, the kind of beings who could probably arm wrestle a black hole and win. Category 5 is, well, basically everything that should probably stick to administrative duties and never touch a weapon. Humans got slapped with Category 5 before they even walked through the door. The assessment team took one look at their homeworld data and laughed so hard that poor Lieutenant Kraz actually choked on his nutrient paste. Earth, the file said, was a garden world. Moderate climate, liquid water, oxygen, nitrogen atmosphere, gravity of only 1.0 standard units. The humans themselves, bipedal, no natural armor, no venom, no claws worth mentioning, no exoskeleton, no redundant organs, and they apparently died if they did not consume specific organic matter every few hours. They were fragile, weak, absolutely, completely, utterly non-threatening. So when Cadet Flynn Bridger showed up for orientation week, nobody paid him much attention. Flynn was, by human standards, apparently pretty average. Brown hair, brown eyes, about 6 feet tall in their measurement system, which translated to roughly 7.2 of our standard units. He had this perpetual half-smile on his face, like he was in on some private joke that the rest of us were not aware of. He wore the Academy jumpsuit like it was the most comfortable thing in the universe, while the rest of his intake class looked like they were being slowly strangled by the standard issue fabric. Orientation week is always the same. Boring speeches about honor, duty, sacrifice, blah blah blah. Then we heard the new cadets through the standard tests. Intelligence assessment, which Flynn passed with decent scores, nothing spectacular. Tactical reasoning, same story. The other cadets in his group, a Krexatha named Thorg Hammerfist, and a Quilrian collective called Unity 17, scored higher. Nobody was surprised. The medical evaluation was where things got a tiny bit interesting, though we did not realize it at the time. The doc, a very thorough Matherian named physician Quillix Rendersnap, ran Flynn through the scanner and just kept frowning. 4-chambered heart, single brain, bilateral symmetry, skeletal structure made of calcium deposits. Fragile, breakable calcium deposits. Quillix kept muttering things like primitive and structurally questionable while Flynn just stood there grinning like an idiot. But here is the thing about orientation week. The real test, the one that actually matters, comes at the end. The gravity test. See, combat does not happen in nice, comfortable, standardized environments. You might need to fight on a high-gravity world where every step feels like you are wearing a mountain. You might need to operate on a low-gravity moon where one wrong move sends you flying into orbit. The gravity chamber tests your absolute baseline, your ability to function when the universe decides to make things difficult. Every species has a breaking point. The pifflings, for instance, turned into actual pancakes at about 1.4 standard gravities. The Voynith could handle up to 3.2 before their crystalline structures started developing stress fractures. Even we Zalthorians, tough as we are, started struggling around 4.5. The test was scheduled for day 7 of orientation. Standard procedure. Nothing special, just another routine evaluation that would confirm what we already knew. Flynn Bridger, Category 5, low threat, garden world human, would probably tap out at 1.3 gravities, maybe 1.5 if he was feeling ambitious. That was what we thought, anyway. Oh, how wrong we were. How spectacularly, hilariously, pants-wettingly wrong we were. The gravity chamber is not exactly what you would call subtle. It is a massive cylindrical room, about 50 meters in diameter, with walls made of reinforced titanium alloy that could probably withstand a direct hit from a plasma cannon. The floor is covered in impact-absorbing gel pads, because trust me, when cadets start collapsing under increased gravity, you do not want them cracking their skulls open on bare metal. Bad for morale. Worse for the cleaning staff. The whole thing is controlled from an observation deck that sits behind 6 inches of transparent aluminum. From up there, you can watch the cadets struggle and suffer while sipping your morning stimulant beverage in perfect safety. I know that sounds cruel, but honestly, if you cannot handle some extra gravity, you have no business being in combat situations where someone is actively trying to kill you. The way it works is pretty simple. We start everyone at their homeworld gravity, just to establish a baseline. Then we increase it in 0.2 increments until they either complete the required tasks or collapse into a whimpering pile of regret. The required tasks are not complicated. Walk 20 meters, pick up a 15-kilogram weight, carry it back. That is it. No tricks, no surprises, just basic functional movement under stress. Most species have a pretty predictable curve. The Voynith, with their crystalline bodies, do great at first but then hit a wall hard when the pressure starts creating fractures. The SCIFI, all muscle and ego, usually make it to around 2.8 before their cardiovascular systems start screaming for mercy. The Quilrians cheat by redistributing their consciousness into whichever bodies are handling the gravity best, but even they have limits. The record, by the way, was held by a Draxian named Commander Stonebreaker, who made it to 5.3 standard gravities before finally admitting defeat. Draxians are Category 1, apex predators from a high-gravity world, where everything, including the plants, is apparently trying to kill you. Stonebreaker was a legend. His record had stood for 42 cycles. The instructors running the test were Chief Warrant Officer Breck Ironjaw, a Zalthorian like myself, but significantly more intimidating, and Lieutenant Senna Quickstrike, a lithe Falcorian with reflexes fast enough to snatch bullets out of the air. Breck had a voice like gravel being chewed by a garbage disposal and all the warmth of a black hole. Senna was quieter but somehow more terrifying, the kind of person who smiled right before destroying your entire sense of self-worth. They had run this test hundreds of times. They knew exactly what to expect from every species. They had the data, the charts, the predictive models. Everything was routine, clinical, professional. And then Flynn Bridger walked into the prep room. While the other cadets were doing stretches, reviewing breathing techniques, and generally looking nervous, Flynn was sitting on a bench tying his boots and humming some kind of tune. Actually humming. Thorg Hammerfist, the SCIFI who was built like a tank, had angry relations with a mountain, was doing elaborate warm-up exercises that involved flexing all 4 arms in synchronized patterns. Unity 17 had spread their collective bodies around the room, each one doing different stretches to optimize their performance. Flynn just sat there, relaxed, casual, like he was waiting for a transport shuttle instead of a test that might literally crush him. Breck noticed. He always noticed. "Cadet Bridger," Breck rumbled, his voice echoing off the prep room walls. "Are you not going to prepare?" Flynn looked up with that same half-smile. "I am prepared, sir. You are sitting down." "Yes, sir. Very prepared sitting, sir." Senna made a sound that might have been a suppressed laugh. Breck just stared, his facial plates shifting in what I recognized as confused irritation. "Your homeworld gravity is 1.0 standard," Breck said slowly, like he was explaining something to a child. "We will be increasing pressure significantly. You should stretch, prepare your body, focus your mind. Flynn shrugged. Appreciate the concern, sir, but I am good. The other cadets were staring now. Thorg looked offended, like Flynn's casual attitude was somehow insulting to the sacred ritual of pre-test preparation. Unity 17's primary body tilted its head in that way that meant they were confused across all 12 instances. I was watching from the observation deck, datapad in hand, ready to record the results. I had already written down my prediction. Flynn Bridger, 1.4 gravities, moderate strain, probable withdrawal at 1.6, conservative estimate, professional assessment, based on decades of experience. Breck checked his chronometer. 5 minutes until test commencement. All cadets to the staging area. They filed in. Thorg went first, naturally, because SCIFI never miss an opportunity to demonstrate dominance. Unity 17 went second, their 12 bodies moving in perfect coordination, and Flynn went last, still humming that tune, hands in his pockets like he was taking a casual stroll through a park. The chamber door sealed with a heavy clang that always made my spine tingle. Breck's voice crackled over the intercom. Beginning gravity test. May your ancestors watch over you and your failures teach you humility. He always said that. Every single time. I think he got it from a motivational poster. The gravity generators hummed to life, and the test began. The gravity generators make this sound when they activate, a deep thrumming hum that you feel in your bones before you actually hear it. The air in the chamber shimmers slightly as the artificial gravity field stabilizes, and you can see the exact moment it kicks in because everyone inside suddenly stands a little straighter, compensates a little harder, feels the weight of the universe pressing down on them. Thorg went first, because of course he did. At 1.0 standard gravity, his homeworld baseline, he strutted forward like he owned the place. All four arms swinging, muscles rippling under his thick green hide, moving with the confidence of someone who had absolutely no doubt about their physical superiority. He grabbed the 15-kilogram weight like it was made of feathers, carried it back to the start line, and flexed, literally flexed. All four arms simultaneously, while making direct eye contact with the observation window. Show off, Senna muttered from her position at the control panel. Breck just grunted and increased the gravity to 1.2. Thorg felt it immediately. You could see the adjustment in his stance, the way his knees bent slightly more, the way his swagger became just a bit more purposeful. But he completed the task again, no problem. At 1.4 he was sweating. At 1.6 his breathing had become audible over the intercom. At 1.8 he was moving slow, deliberate, every step calculated. At 2.0 he made it halfway back with the weight before dropping it and raising one hand in surrender. Cadet hammer fist. 2.0 gravities. Acceptable performance, Breck announced, making a note on his datapad. Exit through the side door for medical evaluation. Thorg limped out, still trying to look dignified despite the fact that he was clearly in pain. Category 3 performance, right where the projections said he would be. Unity 17 went next. Now here is where it gets interesting, with hive minds. They started at 0.8 standard gravity, their homeworld baseline, and they moved like a well-oiled machine. Bodies coordinating, sharing the load, redistributing effort across their collective consciousness. It was actually pretty impressive to watch, like a perfectly choreographed dance where every dancer was technically the same person. They made it to 2.4 before their coordination started breaking down. At 2.6, 3 of their bodies collapsed. At 2.8, they withdrew voluntarily, citing structural integrity concerns for their remaining mobile units. Cadet Unity 17, 2.8 gravities. Exceptional performance for a distributed consciousness species, Breck said. He almost sounded impressed, which for Breck was basically the equivalent of throwing a parade. Which brought us to Flynn Bridger, Category 5, low threat, who was still standing there with his hands in his pockets like he was waiting for a cafeteria line to move. Cadet Bridger, Breck's voice boomed through the intercom. Approach the start line. Flynn ambled over. Not walked, not marched, ambled. Like he had all the time in the world and gravity was more of a suggestion than a physical law. Beginning at 1.0 standard gravity. Your baseline? Flynn nodded, still casual, still relaxed. Proceed. He walked forward, picked up the weight with one hand, carried it back, set it down gently. His breathing had not changed. His posture had not changed. He looked exactly as relaxed as he had in the prep room. I frowned at my datapad. That was, well, normal, expected. Nothing to worry about. 1.2 gravities, Breck announced. Flynn completed the task again. Same casual walk, same easy movement, same completely unbothered expression. 1.4, again, no visible strain. I leaned forward, in my seat. Okay, that was slightly better than predicted, but humans were known to have some individual variation. Maybe Flynn was just on the higher end of their performance curve. 1.6. Flynn picked up the weight, examined it for a second like he was checking to see if it was the right one, then carried it back. He was not even breathing hard. Senna looked at Breck. Breck looked at Senna. They both looked at the monitor displaying Flynn's vital signs. Heart rate barely elevated. Respiration normal. Muscle strain minimal. 1.8, Breck said, and there was a note of curiosity in his voice now. Flynn completed it. Still casual. Still unbothered. The observation deck had gone quiet. The other instructors who had been milling around, filling out paperwork, making small talk, they all stopped what they were doing and turned to watch. 2.0. Flynn walked the course. No stumbling. No visible effort. No strain. He set the weight down and then, and I swear I am not making this up, he stretched. Just a casual little arm stretch, like he had been sitting too long and needed to work out a kink. What the hell? Someone whispered behind me. I think it was Lieutenant Kraz, but I was too focused on the monitor to check. Breck's facial plates were doing that thing they do when he is confused, but refuses to admit it. 2.2 gravities. Flynn completed it. Easily. 2.4. Again. No problem. Borg, who was supposed to be in medical, had come back and was pressed against the observation window, all four eyes wide. Unity 17's primary body had returned as well, their distributed consciousness apparently too curious to stay away. 2.6, Breck said, and his voice had gone flat, emotionless, the way it always did when he encountered something that did not match his expectations. Flynn picked up the weight, carried it back, set it down, rolled his shoulders a little. My datapad slipped out of my hands and clattered on the floor. 2.8 gravities, Breck announced. That was Unity 17's max. That was where most Category 2 species started struggling. That was well beyond what any Category 5 species should even survive, let alone function under. Flynn completed the task. His breathing was slightly elevated now. I could hear it over the intercom, but he was not struggling. He was not collapsing. He was not showing any signs of failure. Senna pulled up the human data file on her screen, scrolling frantically through the information. Breck, she said quietly. Their homeworld gravity is listed as 1.0 standard. I know, Breck growled. So how is he? I do not know. Flynn looked up at the observation window and gave a little wave, like he was greeting friends at a social gathering. 3.0 gravities, Breck said, and there was no procedure for this anymore. We had gone off the map. We were in uncharted territory. The generator's hum increased in pitch. The air in the chamber grew thicker, heavier, pressing down with 3 times the force of standard galactic gravity. Flynn Bridger bent down, picked up the weight, and carried it back to the start line. Then he looked up at the observation window and said, in a voice that was slightly strained but still fundamentally calm, So, when does this actually get difficult? The observation deck erupted in chaos. Breck Ironjaw, a veteran of 47 years of military service, a decorated combat instructor who had survived 3 planetary invasions, and a court-martial that he still refuses to talk about, just stood there with his mouth hanging open like someone had removed his brain and replaced it with a very confused potato. Senna was frantically typing commands into her console, pulling up data screens, cross-referencing files, and generally looking like someone who had just realized that everything she knew about the universe was potentially wrong. Check the gravity generator, Breck finally managed to say. There must be a calibration error. I already checked, Senna shot back. 3 times. The generator is functioning perfectly. The gravity field is exactly 3.0 standard units. No fluctuations, no errors, no malfunctions. Then check his vital signs. Maybe the bioscanner is broken. Senna pulled up Flynn's medical readout. Heart rate elevated but stable. Blood pressure slightly high but within acceptable parameters. Muscle strain present but not critical. Respiratory function completely normal. Everything indicated that he was experiencing 3.0 gravity and handling it like it was a minor inconvenience. Bioscanner is fine, Senna said. and her voice had gone quiet in that way that meant she was genuinely unsettled. He is really doing this. In the chamber, Flynn had sat down cross-legged on the floor and was apparently waiting for further instructions. At 3 times standard gravity. Just sitting there, comfortable. Lieutenant Craze pushed his way to the front of the observation deck, his tentacles quivering with agitation. This is impossible. Humans are Category 5, Garden World species. They should have tapped out at 1.4, maybe 1.6 maximum. This does not make any sense, unless, and here is where things got really interesting, one of the junior instructors, a young Matherian named Ensign Pixel Sharpclaw, spoke up from the back of the room. Unless we got their homeworld gravity wrong. Everyone turned to stare at her. Explain, Breck commanded. Pixel pulled up the Earth data file on the main screen. Look at the initial assessment. It says here that Earth has 1.0 standard gravity. But who measured it? Where did this data come from? Senna scrolled through the file history. It came from the human delegation's initial contact package. They provided the data themselves when they applied for coalition membership, and we just, took their word for it. Pixel asked. Did anyone actually verify it? Send a probe? Take independent measurements? The silence in the observation deck was deafening. Oh, you have got to be kidding me, I heard myself say out loud. We classified an entire species based on self-reported data and nobody thought to double-check it. Rex's facial plates had gone completely rigid. Pull up the gravitational calculations. Use Earth's mass and radius from the astrophysics database. Calculate the actual surface gravity. Senna's fingers flew across her console. Numbers flashed on the screen, formulas scrolled past, and then the result appeared. And every single person in that observation deck felt their stomachs drop through the floor. 9.8 meters per second squared, Senna read aloud. Which converts to, oh no. Oh no. Say it, Breck ordered. 1.0 standard units, Senna said. The humans were telling the truth. Earth's gravity actually is 1.0. Then how is he doing that? Thorg roared, gesturing wildly at Flynn with all 4 arms. Pixel was still reading the data, her eyes growing wider. Wait, look at this, the standard unit we use for galactic gravity measurements. It is based on the average gravity of the 12 founding species homeworlds. But look at the actual range. The lowest is 0.7, the highest is 1.2. Earth is not at 1.0 compared to that scale. She punched in new numbers. If we recalibrate using Earth's actual gravity as the baseline, Pixel said slowly, then standard galactic gravity, the 1.0 that we use for everything, the gravity on this space station, the gravity in most coalition vessels, that is actually 0.98 compared to Earth. The observation deck went absolutely silent. You are telling me, Lieutenant Kraz said, his voice barely above a whisper, that humans have been walking around this entire academy under slightly lower gravity than their homeworld, and nobody noticed? Oh, it gets better. Pixel continued, and she actually started laughing. Not a happy laugh. More like the laugh of someone whose entire worldview is crumbling. Look at their evolutionary data. Earth is listed as a garden world, moderate threat level, but check the actual planetary conditions. Toxic oxygen atmosphere that would corrode most species. Extreme temperature variations, tectonic instability, frequent meteorological events that would classify as natural disasters on most civilized worlds, and oh, this is my favorite part, approximately 70% of the surface is covered in a corrosive solvent that they use for recreation. Water, Senna said flatly. She means water, they swim in it, Pixel said, still laughing. For fun, in oceans, where there are predators. Apex predators that they apparently did not even bother to mention in their threat assessment, because they consider them normal. Breck turned back to the gravity chamber window. Flynn was still sitting there, looking patient and mildly curious about what was taking so long. 3.5 gravities, Breck said into the intercom, and his voice sounded like death. Flynn stood up. At 3.5 times standard gravity, which was actually 3.43 times his homeworld gravity, a level that should have crushed his skeletal structure into powder. He picked up the weight. He carried it back. He was breathing harder now, visibly straining, but he completed the task. 4.0 gravities. Flynn staggered slightly when it hit, went down on one knee. Then, and I watched this happen with my own eyes, he pushed himself back up, walked forward, picked up the weight with both hands, this time. carried it back, step by agonizing step, muscles trembling with effort. He completed it. "Stop the test," Senna said urgently. "Breck, we need to stop. We are approaching Stonebreaker's record. If we push him past 5.0, we could cause serious injury." "That record was set by a Draxian," Breck said, still staring at Flynn. "Category 1, apex predator species. And this is a human, Category 5, garden world." "Clearly," I said, because someone needed to state the obvious. "We need to reconsider our categorization system." Thorg had all four hands pressed against the observation window. "How?" he kept saying. "How? How?" Unity 17's bodies had all gathered together in a tight cluster, their collective consciousness apparently struggling to process what they were witnessing. "Our projections did not account for this variable. Our models are insufficient. Our understanding is incomplete." Flynn looked up at the observation window. His face was red, sweat was pouring down his forehead. His muscles were shaking, but he was grinning. Actually grinning. "Come on," he called out, his voice strained but clear. "I know you have got more than that. Let us see what this thing can really do." Breck's hand hovered over the gravity controls. "Sir," Senna said, warningly, "we do not know his limits. We could kill him." 4.5 gravities, Breck announced, and he pressed the button. The generator's hum became a roar. The air in the chamber turned into visible waves of distortion. 4.5 times standard gravity. 4.41 times Earth's actual gravity. A level where most Category 2 species would be unconscious. Flynn Bridger dropped to his hands and knees, gasped for air, struggled against the crushing weight of the universe pressing down on him. And then, slowly, impossibly, defiantly, he started to push himself up. Every single person in the observation deck was holding their breath. Flynn made it to his feet. Swaying, trembling, looking like he might collapse at any second, he took one step forward, then another, reached the weight, grabbed it with both hands, lifted it, centimeter by agonizing centimeter, and then he started walking back. "Somebody," Lieutenant Kraz whispered, "please tell me we are recording this." "Oh, we are recording this," Pixel said. "And when Command sees it, they are going to lose their minds." Flynn reached the start line, set the weight down, looked up at us with that same grin now edged with pain but still present, still defiant, still very much human. "New personal best," he gasped out. "Do I get a medal or something?" Breck hit the emergency shutdown. The gravity field dropped back to standard levels instantly. Medical personnel rushed into the chamber, and in the observation deck we all just stood there, trying to come to terms with the fact that everything we thought we knew about humans was catastrophically, hilariously, terrifyingly wrong. The medical team swarmed Flynn the moment they got into the chamber. Physician Quillix Rendesnap was leading the charge. Scanners out, diagnostic equipment beeping, and that perpetually worried expression that Metherians always have cranked up to maximum intensity. Flynn, for his part, just waved them off. "I am fine, really. Just need some water and maybe a sandwich." "Do you guys have sandwiches here? I have been meaning to ask." Quillix ignored him completely, and started running every scan known to medical science. Bone density analysis, muscle fiber composition, cardiovascular efficiency, neural response times, the works. The rest of us crowded around the observation deck monitors, watching the results come in real time. And let me tell you, the results were absolutely bananas. "His bone density is off the charts," Quillix muttered, scrolling through data. "Skeletal structure reinforced with some kind of calcium phosphate matrix that I have never seen before. Muscle fibers are packed incredibly dense, something called type 2 fast-twitch muscles that apparently store and release energy with extreme efficiency. And his cardiovascular system, oh ancestors preserve us. His cardiovascular system is designed like a military-grade pump with redundant backup features." "Redundant features?" Senna asked, leaning over Quillix's shoulder. "He has got these things called capillaries that can restrict and expand blood flow based on demand. And his heart, it is a 4-chambered hydraulic masterpiece that can apparently increase output by 300% during stress situations. This is not garden world physiology. This is something that evolved under constant threat." Breck pulled up the Earth file again, really reading it this time instead of just skimming the summary. His facial plates kept shifting as he scrolled through page after page of information that we had all just, somehow collectively ignored. Persistent predation pressure from megafauna, he read aloud. Evolutionary arms race, spanning millions of years. Adaptation to pursuit hunting, endurance running, environmental extremes, survived multiple extinction-level events through behavioral flexibility and tool usage. Currently the only remaining species of their genus after outcompeting or outlasting 6 other closely related species. He looked up from the datapad. They are apex predators. Earth is not a garden world. It is a death world, and we classified them as Category 5 because they do not have claws. To be fair, I said, because someone had to. They really do not have impressive claws. Breck gave me a look that could have melted hull plating. Down in the medical bay, Flynn had finally convinced Quillix to let him sit up. He was drinking something that looked like blue sludge, which was apparently the closest the Academy cafeteria could come to human-compatible nutrition, and chatting cheerfully with one of the medical assistants. So yeah, we could hear him saying over the intercom, "Earth's gravity is pretty standard for us. I mean, I grew up in a place called Colorado, which is actually higher elevation, so slightly lower gravity than sea level. Spent my whole childhood basically training at reduced atmospheric pressure without knowing it. Good times." The medical assistant, a young Quilrian designated Helper 12, stared at him in confusion. "Your childhood involved environmental hazards? I mean, sure. Went hiking a lot. Camping. Swimming in rivers. Normal stuff." "Rivers?" Helper 12 repeated slowly. "Moving bodies of water, with currents, and rocks, and you entered these voluntarily, as a juvenile." Flynn laughed. "Well, yeah. It was fun. Better than sitting inside all day." Helper 12 made a note on their datapad that I was pretty sure said something like possible brain damage or death wish. The investigation continued for 3 days. 3 entire days of testing, measuring, analyzing, and generally having our collective minds blown by human physiology. They brought in specialists from 6 different scientific fields. They ran simulations, they built models, they compared humans to every known species in the Coalition database. The final report landed on Breck's desk at 0600 hours on day 4. I was there when he read it. Watched his expression go from professional interest to disbelief, to resignation to something that might have been respect. "Category 1, he said finally. "The assessment board is recommending humans be reclassified as Category 1, Apex tier, with special notations for endurance capacity, environmental adaptability, and psychological resilience under extreme stress. The same category as the Draxians," Senna said. "The same category as the Draxians," Breck confirmed. "A species we have been using as shock troops for the last century because they are the toughest thing we have ever encountered." Pixel, who had been instrumental in uncovering the whole mess, raised her hand like she was in class. "So, purely hypothetically, how many humans has Earth sent to the Academy?" Breck checked his datapad. His facial plates went completely still. 47. Currently enrolled. 47 humans. All classified Category 5. All undergoing the standard low-threat training regimen. "Which means," I said, following the logic to its inevitable conclusion, "that we have 47 apex predators wandering around this facility who think they are supposed to be doing clerical work and light maintenance." "Oh, it gets worse," Breck said, and he actually laughed. Not a happy laugh. The laugh of a man who has realized that his entire career has been one long exercise in missing the obvious. According to the Earth recruitment data, these 47 are not even their best candidates. These are the ones who scored average on their planetary assessments. Earth has been sending us their C students. The room went very, very quiet. "Their C students just broke Stonebreaker's record," Senna whispered. "What do you think their students are like?" Pixel asked, and nobody had an answer for that because, frankly, we were all too terrified to speculate. Flynn Bridger was cleared for duty 2 days later with a new classification, a formal apology from the Academy Commandant, and a note in his file that said approach physical limitations with extreme caution. He took it all with good humor, that same half-smile on his face, like he had known all along how this was going to play out. The other 46 humans got reclassified over the next week. Every single one of them had been massively underperforming because we had set their training parameters based on catastrophically incorrect assumptions. Once we recalibrated their programs for Category 1 standards, well, let us just say that the Academy record boards needed some serious updates. I ran into Flynn about a month later in the cafeteria. He was eating something that he claimed was similar to a food item called pizza, though it looked like geometric sadness on a plate to me. No hard feelings about the whole gravity test thing, right, Sergeant Thornwhistle? He asked, grinning around a mouthful of geometric sadness. No hard feelings, I said. Though I have got to ask, did you know, when you walked into that chamber, did you know what was going to happen? Flynn's grin widened. Let me put it this way, Sergeant. When I applied to the Academy, I read through all the publicly available information about Coalition species and their capabilities. I saw the gravity ranges. I saw the strength assessments. I saw the endurance benchmarks, and I thought, that is interesting. And you did not think to mention any of this to anyone. Where would be the fun in that? Flynn said. Besides, I figured you would all work it out eventually. I just did not expect it to be quite so, dramatic. I sat down across from him because my legs were not really working properly anymore. Your entire species. You are all like this, more or less, Flynn said cheerfully. I mean, some variation. Sure. But yeah, basically, we are all just a bunch of endurance persistence hunters from a planet that keeps trying to kill us in creative ways. You get used to it. Your planet keeps trying to kill you. Oh yeah. Earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, droughts, wildfires, blizzards, heat waves, plus all the animals. And the plants, some of those are nasty. And the bacteria, do not even get me started on the bacteria. It is a whole thing. I just stared at him. But hey, Flynn continued, it builds character, right? Makes you tough. Prepares you for military service in a galactic coalition where apparently everyone else comes from nice safe planets where nothing bad ever happens. Flynn, I said slowly, I am from a planet where the atmospheric pressure would crush you flat, the temperature swings would boil your blood, and the local predators hunt in packs using coordinated ambush tactics. Sounds fun, Flynn said. We should go camping there sometime. And that, right there, is when I truly understood what the Coalition had gotten itself into by accepting humans. We had not recruited a bunch of Category 5 administrators. We had recruited an entire species of friendly, cheerful, enthusiastic apex predators who thought that death worlds were fun vacation spots. The galaxy, I realized, was about to get very, very interesting. And somewhere in the back of my mind I heard the sound of every military strategist in the Coalition simultaneously realizing that humanity was not the weak link in our defenses. Humanity was the thing we had been missing all along. The thing that would look at impossible odds, smile that slightly unhinged smile, and say, so when does this actually get difficult? I finished my stimulant beverage, watched Flynn demolish his geometric sadness pizza, and tried very hard not to think about what would happen when Command decided to actually deploy these lunatics in combat. But I had a feeling we were all going to find out soon enough. And honestly, I could not wait to see the look on the enemy's face when they realized what they were up against. Category 1, Apex Tier. Death World Survivors. Also known as humans. The galaxy was never going to be the same.